I'm Evan Baumgardner. I'm a board certified hypnotist and behavioral change expert, and welcome to MK Monday. Today, we are going to talk about why you believe conspiracy theories. And the answer might surprise you. It's because they're true. Now, not really, right? No, not in the way that you think. But every conspiracy theory starts with some nugget of truth. However, because we are pattern seeking creatures and our minds are always looking to come up with an answer while expending the least amount of energy, we will create a lot of stories to fill in the gaps in between and make those conclusions in a way that makes sense so we can make sense of the world around us. So, I know I was reading a thread last week and discussing this, and one of the things I thought of were, all the conspiracy theories recently about the horrible wildfires in Maui. And people were saying, "Oh, well, it's these property developers because they're all swooping in and trying to buy up the land and then redevelop and force, the locals out and everything." And then there's also, oh yeah, it was started by energy weapons, testing on that sort of thing. And now these seem kind of far out, but there are nuggets of truth in there. One, does our military actually possess directed energy weapons that could cause a wildfire, that could do that? Absolutely. They absolutely do. We know this. They have directed energy weapons that are used as missile defense systems, and it wouldn't be too hard to turn that onto some dry brush and start a wildfire, especially in high winds. It gets completely out of control. All right. The other thing is the developers. Now, I've read articles about this. I know it happens probably more often than any of us would want to believe. But the big article was in San Francisco. There's this expose there of landlords uh, hiring people to arson their buildings in order to force residents out so they could sell and or redevelop the property. This is something that has happened, that was a major problem that people have gone to jail for, and people still do and get away with and get caught and get arrested. All of that. These are two true things based in reality that happens. And when you have a horrible, tragic event like the wildfires in Maui, absolute destruction, loss of life, horrible. People want answers, you know? And when you look at the absolute inept response of the local authorities and their lack of transparency surrounding it, people get angry. People get frustrated. Because they want answers. Why did this happen? Who is responsible? What could have been done to prevent it? Did this have to happen? So then you have local politicians and administrators, bureaucrats whose, jobs are on the line. Essentially, they're being held responsible for this. Now, they fucked up and they're looking for a way to cover their ass to save their job. So now you have a third thing that's true that happens in the way. Right. And when we start looking at these things as we're looking for an answer, because remember, our brain is always going to take shortcuts. This is where the conspiracy theories start. because it's going, oh, yeah, this is true, and this is true. They must all connect, right? Because we're looking for patterns. We're looking to put these things together in a way that makes sense, in a way for us to comprehend. And thinking that, oh, yeah, it's not just sheer incompetence and tragedy and a horrible cyclone of just the worst things that could happen, causing a disaster. That's completely random, right? We can't predict that. We can't do anything about that. That's scary. And the reason that's so scary is because it's unknown. And nothing is scarier to our subconscious, unconscious mind than the unknown. That's why we have so many problems trying to change habits that we've had for a long time, establish good ones, even when it benefits us. Because logically, we're thinking about, we're like, oh yeah, if I do this, if I quit smoking, if I work out, if I, whatever else, quit biting my nails, if I make these changes, it's going to be better for me in these ways. But then you keep doing it, and it feels like you're stuck. You're running on autopilot because that old programming is going. Because at some point, remember, every behavior that we do has some sort of perceived beneficial function. Whether it's actually, beneficial or not, even at some point, the subconscious mind made the association that it was. Even if it's outlived its usefulness and become destructive, the program is still there that says this helps. This helps us in some way. This provides a benefit. And the reason it's so hard to change is because it's the devil, right? The unknown is terrifying to the subconscious. And it's emotion that drives the subconscious. Emotion and repetition. That's how things get imprinted into the subconscious mind. So when there's a conflict between the logical, rational, analytical part of the brain and the emotional part, 100% of the time, the emotional part will always win. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. Unless you get it on board with what you consciously want, and that's where, hypnosis comes in to help us change those things. But back to the matter at hand with conspiracy theories. So, knowing that the subconscious mind is terrified of the unknown and it wants answers, and here is a random event, something that could, terrible tragedy that could happen pretty much anywhere at any time. We have no control over it whatsoever, right? No control. But if we take these things that we know that do have some basis in reality, these nuggets of truth, and we can actually draw a line between them to see how they work in, together. Yeah, if for some reason these things were working together, this would happen, right? That's an explanation. That's almost like something that could be in our control somehow. All you have to do is expose it. All you have to do is shine light on it. And then you have control of it. It's not as scary. It's easier to accept that there could be the military, developers, politicians, all working together to destroy a historic town, to come in and rebuild it for a massive profit. that's easier to accept than this is a terrible tragedy that just randomly happened, right? That there was no control over. And then the other thing that makes it more believable, more acceptable to the unconscious mind is because that shit is going to happen. Developers absolutely are swooping in. They're acting in their own interest. Chaos in the world, no matter what, it creates opportunity. And then people will move in with their own interest to capitalize on that opportunity. Whether that's war, whether that's a natural disaster, whether that's something. It could be as simple as an old person that driving their car through a window of a lens crafters, that now, oh, well, maybe there's a structural thing and now this whole plaza has to be rebuilt and businesses have to shut down and other things come in, right? And a new thing is built there and this is wiped out. Things change, but the moneyed interests are always going to look out for their own interests and act in what's best for them. We do that as individuals. We're acting out of self-interest. And what is in our own self-interest may not be good for somebody else. It could have a negative effect on somebody else while having a positive effect on us. It's sad but true. And so when you have these different interests all working separately, but in their own best interests, and then bringing all this stuff together, it's easy to come up and start thinking, oh, this is some sort of conspiracy. But it's not. Sometimes there really are, light bulbs. That's a conspiracy theory. That is true. Light bulbs could last forever. And the light bulb manufacturers in the 1900s, they got together and they formed a cartel and they said, hey, we're limiting our light bulbs to only last this long. We're going to make a deal to keep everything the same so we all keep profiting. That's a true conspiracy. That happened. That's documented. It's well known. I think we could have refrigerators that work forever instead of worrying about them breaking down. But we don't because of that. I mean, then you get into the planned obsolescence of phones, etc. Which I don't think that's completely been proven. But obviously with technology, they want you to keep buying and keep upgrading as the new things come on. So it wouldn't surprise me if that was true. But light bulbs, that's absolutely true. That's a true conspiracy theory right there. And so again, if you have idiot bureaucrats who screwed up, who didn't do their job right, and they're going to cover their ass, and then you have greedy developers who are just acting in their own self-interest coming in, it's going to look like they're working together because both are shady as hell. But that doesn't mean it's true. But again, it's easier to accept that, to explain away something awful, that, oh no, they must be, because it creates an external enemy. It creates something that you could combat, that if it wasn't for this, we could stop these sorts of things from happening. Even if that's not the case, because it was just a random tragedy. But again, the unknown is scarier to the subconscious mind than the devil you know. And because we take shortcuts subconsciously to work out problems, to solve things, which is a huge benefit to us, it's easy for us to jump to these conclusions and connect dots when there are no dots to connect. That said, if they were working together, they wouldn't tell you. That's the exact opposite thing. So, but yeah, so just be aware. So when you're watching the news, anytime you're getting information, get it from like at least 3 different sources, because even the most trustworthy news places are going to get things wrong, and they're going to have their own slant to it. But when you find, okay, what is everybody saying? This is why it's good to view both sides and step out of echo chambers, so we're not reinforcing that cycle of, just going into shortcuts and jumping to these conclusions that are easier to accept. Do that. But yeah, just look at from different angles. And especially when it comes to like personal change with hypnosis, the big thing that we're doing is like, oh yeah, it's not making you do anything. You're just approaching it from a different angle at that point. And now your subconscious mind is on board. It's not afraid of it anymore because it sees the benefit over the old way of doing things. And the change becomes automatic. You're not expending that much energy. And so we can use those same systems, those same shortcuts to get us massive benefits. And yeah, I have the feeling that there was something else I wanted to mention while I was here, but I'm starting to draw a blank right now. So let's see. Oh yeah, politicians, bureaucrats, they are going to lie to protect themselves. But again, that doesn't mean that they're working, on some grand conspiracy, or they're in on it. A lot of times they're just idiots. I'd say most of the time. Doesn't mean they can't do some evil things, but pretty much they're just idiots acting in their own self-interest. Many such cases. All right. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. I hope this has been informative. Recognize when you're taking those shortcuts and stop and check yourself. All right. Till next time, be seen.